The Productivity Commission report came back with a pretty in-depth examination. They're not saying, well, they're saying that the path of so-called universal childcare payments wouldn't be all that fair and would be really going a lot to the top end. So they're looking at, I guess, a similar Labor principle and saying, here's a better way to do it. What have you made of the report? Has it given you food for thought?
Well, look, of course, the government is considering this report really closely, along with the ACCC report that will be handed in a few months. Of course, we want to ensure that every child, no matter where they live, gets access to high-quality early childhood education. That's really critically important. It's critically important for children and critically important for workforce participation. And so these two elements are really important. But, of course, what the Productivity Commission did show is that many of those who might benefit from access to early childhood education are not able to access it. So, look, we'll be looking at that report very closely. We've, of course, already made some really big strides in increasing the pay for early educators, for example. Now, you might say, well, how does that benefit? Well, the Productivity Commission showed that investing in the workforce was critical to ensure the benefits flowed on to children. So these are all linked, and we'll be looking at it as a government very closely.
You have obviously a big pull on staff and, you know, attracting them, so that's obviously a factor as well. So you mentioned getting access to it. It also said, the productivity report, get rid of the activity tests, so altogether. Is that something you'd consider, that albeit people will say, hang on, this person's, you know, not even working, but it's about getting that start for the child and making sure they get the socialising aspect, the education aspect as well, so they're not starting school often behind?
Well, we'll, of course, look at the Productivity Commission. The activity test was something that was examined by the Economic Inclusion Advisory Committee as well. Of course, that's something that Minister Clare and the government will consider as part of the Productivity Commission's review. But I think your point went to early education is important for children, and it's also important to ensure particularly women can return to work. So there's these two really important benefits, and we need to make sure everyone gets the opportunity for those benefits.
A bit of a price tag on this, $5 billion a year. Is that out of reach for now? Is the budget just too stretched? Are we talking about this being years away?
Well, look, we've already made significant investments in early childhood education. I mentioned the wage increase for early educators. We've also looked at how we make childcare cheaper. Along with that wage increase, there was a commitment, or there needs to be a commitment by centres to cap their fees and not have too large a fee increases. So we've already really been looking at this area, and this Productivity Commission report is another thing we'll clearly look at, along with the ACCC report that will be handed to government.
Just finally, there's a report released today, or a story out today, around domestic violence survey of frontline workers. I'm just interested because the last survey found only 22% of frontline workers felt like their formal qualifications helped them deal specifically with people affected by violence. That's a very low number. So I know a new survey is going along, but what happened to the last survey? Has something happened to sort of change that mismatch?
Well, of course, one of the areas that the Family and Domestic Violence Commissioner talked about is to really understand our national workforce. So often the workforce is different in different states and territories. The qualification requirements are different. Not every worker actually has a qualification. And so we've got to look right across both the specialised and non-specialised family and domestic violence sector and say, what is it? What are the qualifications you feel you need? What is the type of investment that could help you? Where is the distribution across the different states and territories? And how does that all lead to better services for women and children escaping family and domestic violence?
Amanda Rishworth, appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if this story has raised any concerns for you, you can contact the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Helpline at 1800 RESPECT.